You don't lack motivation. That's not the problem. In fact, motivation isn't disappearing at all. You're spending it before you start. And once you see how this happens, you'll stop blaming discipline, productivity, or yourself, and the cycle finally breaks. Stay with me because this mistake feels productive, but quietly kills momentum. Most people believe motivation comes before action, so they wait. They plan, they prepare, they organize, they think it through. And for a moment, it feels responsible. It feels intelligent, it feels controlled. But then something strange happens. The plan is clear, everything makes sense. And yet nothing moves. Energy fades, urgency disappears, and starting suddenly feels heavy. This is where people assume they're lazy. They're not. They've misunderstood how the brain rewards effort. Here's what's actually happening. Your brain doesn't reward results. It rewards perceived progress. When you plan in detail, when you visualize success, when you map everything out clearly, your brain releases a small reward, not enough to change your life, just enough to relax. This is the dangerous part, because that reward was meant for execution. Instead, it was collected early. So when it's time to act, the urgency is gone. The brain thinks this is already handled. But it isn't. This is why motivation feels strongest during planning, and weakest when it's time to begin. This trap is difficult to notice because planning looks like effort. You're not scrolling, you're not distracted, you're focused. On the surface, it looks like discipline. But internally, the brain is doing something else. It's protecting comfort. Because planning has certainty, action has risk. Planning feels clean, action feels messy. So the mind quietly chooses the activity that feels productive without demanding change. That's not failure. That's human psychology unchecked. Think about how people treat goals they talk about often. The more they explain them, the more they describe the plan, the more they feel like they're already in motion. But notice something. The people making the most progress usually talk the least, not because they're secretive, but because they're spending their energy where it matters, on movement, not mental rehearsal. Talking and planning feel similar to progress, but only one changes reality. This is the quiet voice that keeps you stuck. I already know what to do. I've thought this through. I'll start properly tomorrow. That voice sounds reasonable. It doesn't sound like avoidance, it sounds like preparation, but it's actually closure without completion. And once the brain feels closed, it resists reopening the task. That resistance is what people mistake for lack of motivation. Planning has one job: not to make you feel ready, not to make you feel confident. Planning exists to remove friction from the first action. That's it. If a plan ends without immediate movement, it has failed, no matter how elegant it looks. A correct plan does not end with clarity. It ends with motion, even small motion, especially small motion. Pause here for a moment. Notice what your mind usually does right after planning. There is a quiet sense of relief, a feeling that the work is already lighter. That feeling is the signal. It's the exact moment where most people stop, not because they decided to quit, but because their brain believes the job has already begun. This is where momentum is either created or lost, and the difference is not effort. It's whether action follows clarity immediately, or whether clarity becomes the endpoint. Once you see this, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Here's the adjustment that changes everything. Never end a planning session without doing one physical action. Open the document, write one sentence, make the first cut, send the draft, start the timer. Not to finish, just to begin. That single action does what motivation never could. It creates real progress. And once progress exists, motivation follows naturally, not before or after. Motivation is not a requirement. It's feedback. It shows up once movement starts, not before. This is why disciplined people don't look motivated. They're not waiting for permission from a feeling that only arrives after action. They've simply removed the confusion. And when confusion disappears, movement becomes quiet and consistent. Planning isn't the enemy, but planning without movement is a trap. If this gave you clarity, not hype, not pressure, clarity, subscribe to Quiet Clarity. We don't push motivation. We remove what's blocking it. And once clarity is restored, action becomes unavoidable.